Hey guys, what's going on? Rank Up Gaming here, and we'll go back to the video. Of course, it is a Tuesday, which does mean another episode of Tank Tuesday. And for this one, we are finally covering the last tank in Battlefield 1. It's taken a while to get here, we took a week off at one point, but finally the final tank, and that is the heavy tank, or the AV7, or the A7V actually. I always get it wrong if it's AV7 or A7V, it is AV7. Now in real life, this tank was exclusive to the German army, and only 20 were made. For the amount you've actually see pictures of these things, only 20 made, which is amazing to me. I thought they made hundreds, maybe even thousands, but no, 20, that was it. And right now there is one left in the world, which is in Australia of all the places, because it was captured by the Australian army, brought back where they've kept it, and is now in perfect condition. They don't drive it, they don't use it anything, but it's in a museum in Australia. Now as far as I thought I knew, I thought this was like the #1 thing the Germans used. I thought they even had their own variant of the British Mark IVs. It turned out they did use Mark IVs. Every now and then they would take one, retrofit out, and actually use it for their own benefit. But for the most part, they didn't use tanks because they were the defensive team. They would just sit there, wait for me to come to them, and then take them out, and would occasionally move up using heavy artillery. So rarely were these things ever actually seen in real combat. Now it stands at nearly 11 feet tall, it's 10 feet 10 inches. That thing is massive. Imagine 11 feet tall, you just got this giant like iron toaster coming towards you. That thing would just be absolutely terrifying. And it weighs 33 tons and has a crew, minimum crew, of 18. But it does have a maximum speed of 3 miles per hour. Now it was made to combat, like I said, the British tanks in World War One, of course, because Battlefield 1, World War One. But it wasn't very effective. The only advantage it really had is the fact that it had a forward-facing gun at the very front. Aside from that, that gun was awkward to use for the most part. It was slow, made a massive target, and really just wasn't a good design with how big, slow, and cumbersome it was. Now in Battlefield 1, the thing is surprisingly strong, and I do actually really enjoy using it. Like I said, it's really, really powerful. The fact that you have a forward-facing gun like a modern tank gives it a huge advantage over the land ship, and actually somewhat advantage over the small tank, the light tank, mainly because it has more power in that gun, does more damage, and also the fact that with the light tank you might have just you in the tank, or you will have just you in the tank, while with the AV7 you'll have tons of people, meaning they can take infantry while you can focus on other tanks. And the fact you have a forward-facing gun in this tank, you can actually go around and use it as a one-person tank, which is not a lot of time, just roaming around, acting as a giant obstacle, just punching through the enemy lines, and just being a massive nuisance and just unbelievably powerful and unstoppable. Its main downfall is, though, the fact that it is extremely slow. Unless you're going downhill, you're not going to catch anything or anyone running. It's obviously extremely large, basically anyone can see this thing, and it's pretty damn hard to actually miss any kind of shot, and you really need great communication for most variants. Most of the time it doesn't really matter because you can just shoot most people anyway, but a lot of the time you're going to need great communication to use it to its maximum effect. It's also extremely hard to maneuver. Unless you're going forward, you can't actually do a proper pivot, at which point when you try to do one and just turn on the spot, you end up sort of doing this weird shimmy and you go in different directions. It's really awkward. So you have to go forwards, turn right and then go back a bit to get in a perfect position. Basically like driving a normal car, except way, way slower and much, much heavier. It is of course an absolute tank, because it's called a tank, obviously, and you can just punch through anything. And if there's a wall in your way, go straight through the wall, don't even bother. If there's a house in your way, go straight through the house. If there's a car, if there's anything else, another tank, go straight through it, don't even stop. Now for the 3 variants of this tank, the first one you get is the heavy assault. Now of course the driver has a 58mm anti-tank gun along with a scatter gun. That's basically the standard tank loadout in terms of Battlefield 1. And on the side you have 4 heavy machine guns. Now this is 2 gunners on the side, of course 2 guns on the other side, left and right sides, and then you have 1 rear gunner who has dual heavy machine guns. Now this one has a smoke screen and a repair mobility. Basically what this means is, if you get stopped and your tank is disabled, you can't go anywhere, you use repair mobility and you can actually start moving again. And it does, I believe, do 25% repairs anyway, but if your guns are disabled, it won't repair your guns. So this one is actually pretty helpful, but it only has machine guns, so it means that unless you're taking out infantry, there's really isn't much use to it. For the most part, you find that on these machine guns you can't really see much, and when you do see much, people usually run away before you can actually get any good shots on them. The second variant is the Heavy Breakthrough. Now again, the driver has a 58mm gun with a scattergun ability, and the two side gunners have heavy explosive or high explosive automatic cannons. Now you got one of these on either side, and they're actually extremely powerful, but they're kind of questionable. Most of the time I find with these things they're not doing as much damage as I think they should be doing, so a lot of the time I just kind of find they're slightly pointless. And now the twin heavy machine guns at the rear do actually give a good boost, but they are extremely similar to the heavy assault heavy machine guns, at which point you kind of think, well, should I choose that version? But then again, the autocannons are somewhat of a help. Now this one does also have an emergency repair and a drop supplies. It'll drop ammo and it'll drop health bags, and that's actually pretty helpful. This one is sort of the all-round beast tank, but for the most part isn't as dynamic as the other ones. And the final one is the Heavy Flamethrower. Now of course the driver again has a 58mm gun with a scattergun, but the two side gunners, there's actually 4 side gunners in this one, again 2 on either side. The first side gunners have heavy machine guns, while the second side gunners get flamethrowers. That's amazing. They get flamethrowers which just burst out massive, like 15 feet long lines of flame and fire, and they just burn everybody and do massive amount of damage, and you actually get a lot of kills if you can use one effectively. Now this one also has an emergency repair and a gas emitter. It'll basically drop a gas grenade right on top of the tank, and anyone stood next to it is basically dead unless they put their mask on, at which point they're putting themselves a huge disadvantage, and either way they probably get killed by the flame anyway. Now the one disadvantage of the tank is there is no rear gunner. That's not a huge problem, with the amount of times where somebody goes to just go behind you, or you need to look behind you and your teammate's saying, hey look, there's somebody behind us, but you don't actually know that. It's not, again, essential, but it does actually help quite a bit to know when that happens. As well as the flamethrowers can occasionally be a bit of a hazard as opposed to a solution, because most of the time they make a huge cloud of flame, and it really makes it hard to see some things, and some of the time as well you can make a problem with your team because they might think it's friendly flame or enemy flame and not go that direction. Now for me, the flamethrower variant, like I said, is amazing in close combat. The flamethrowers do absolutely massive damage, the heavy machine guns on the side are a great asset to them, the scattergun 58mm are always amazing. But again, the problem is there's no rear gunner, which does mean that if someone comes behind you, you have no idea until you start getting shot at. Now really with this tank, any variant is pretty damn good, as long as you keep your distance, take long range shots and use the 58mm gun at the front, as opposed to acting like other tanks where you gotta wait for your gunners to line up. It is up to you now to line yourself up. It's actually very helpful. The breakthrough can be a lot of fun, but again, it's less dynamic than the others, and occasionally I find myself needing the abilities of the other tanks, like more heavy machine guns in order to take out infantry, as opposed to the high explosive automatic cannons, which can present a problem because they have so much splash damage, but don't really do much damage against infantry. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe. At the moment, I'm kind of hoping that these videos are going well, hopefully enjoying them. Again, I missed out the last episode, which should have been this one. But hopefully Tank Tuesday will get rolling again, and episodes come out regularly, and they'll be good, helpful stuff. But until then guys, Michael Gaming, out.